guys, Editing Ash here. This is a special episode going over season 2 as a whole, talking about what we liked, what we didn't like, and everything in between. And you should kind of look at this as a part 1 of the special episodes of Drinks at Dana's, because this Saturday we are recording a very special episode of Drinks at Dana's with a very special guest. So we hope that you will enjoy this episode and then make sure to come back next week for our second special episode with our special guest. I've said special 9,000 times. Enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to Drinks at Dana's. This week we are doing a final little recap on season 2 of the L Word Generation Q. So I am here with Chris and Jess from the L Word Online. Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi.
How are we doing?
Good. It's now, what time is it? It is 10:30 p.m. in Australia time. Where we're out of lockdown now, finally. For the final episode. We're now.
I believe it when I see it. And it's almost 6:30 a.m. here in the Midwest.
And you're back from Egypt and you're living.
Yes, that would have been fun to do. Well, no, I was going to say it would have been fun to do this from Egypt just so I could call in from another random location and time zone. But
mark it off the map.
Yeah, no.
Drinks at Dana's on tour.
That would have been very hard.
Yeah, it's 12:30 here in the UK on a actually sunny day, which has been nice because it's been absolutely bucketing rain for the past week. So we're just going to go through each of the characters and their big storylines from this season and talk about mostly the things we really liked and the things we didn't like so much about the season of Generation Q, and in general how we feel everything went for the season. And then at the end maybe we'll come up with some sort of score and ranking for where the season falls in between, you know, the 6 seasons of the original and the 2 of Generation Q. So let's get right into today's episode, and I think we should start out with Shane and Tess and their storyline. So Shane's main storyline this season was Tess and then the gambling / Dana's and her business.
It was weird because like the gambling went nowhere.
Yeah, it really did.
Like, it was so exciting in the beginning. Like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, it's an illegal
like
thing.
Episode 2, where they all came, like, you know, Bette, Gigi, Alice, and they were all put like that. I really liked that. And I thought, oh, we're going somewhere with...
Or at least having more of that, because, you know, they're like, oh, it's like the group scenes are going to be around poker now.
Yeah.
And then nothing happened.
Yeah, I kept thinking something to do with the
rake
shady side of that, but I thought there'd be some sort of consequence, some sort of climax, something would happen.
Well, I feel like they brought that up so many times, like money and the skimming and the whatever, that I was like, they're leading up to something, right?
I mean, it kind of feels like maybe the first half of the season and the last half of the season were written by different groups of people, because it's like, I didn't care too much about the storyline. We'll just drop it and give you a relationship storyline instead.
Yeah, with the karaoke episode gluing the 2 halves together.
Yeah, I don't know whether you guys listened to Marja was on Pants this week, and she said the episodes 1 through 6 were written like before they started filming, and then episodes 7 through 10 were written like while they were filming. And I'm surprised, because I would think that you would go into the season with like everything, you know, like tweak as you're going along. But I really feel as though, like what you just said about it being written by different people, like it does seem that way, because a lot of the stuff that, if you went halfway on the season, and a lot of the things I was saying in my video, because obviously we saw the first, what was it, the first 5 episodes early. And so I defended the show in a way, like, a lot, because I was like, oh no, this is going somewhere. Like, they're planting all these little things, like, about the rake and stuff. And yeah, the bookend. Only one bookend. And I was talking to my friend Evelyn about this, and she was like making a good point and saying, like, why would you even bring up the rake and like the money trouble and stuff? Like, why are you showing us this when, like, it's like Chekhov's gun. Like, why are you going to show us a gun if you're not going to fire it? Like, it makes no sense. So, and Shane and Tess dated. Yeah, I mean, we did the timeline. I don't know whether, the timeline that we mapped out, and I think Shane and Tess ended up dating for like 2 or 3 weeks. And Bette's like, drop everything, move to Vegas.
Yeah, and Shane's like, I love you. I was like, no, you don't. No. Like, that's way too soon for Shane, especially Shane.
I think that Tess is one of the best, like, I really like her character, and I think that she comes off the best probably in the entire season. Like, she's very level-headed, she like has a good job, and seems like a very evolved and healthy person. So I don't really know what they're gonna do with them next season as well, because Shane seems very evolved now too. And like, if there wasn't this thing with Tessa's mom and Vegas, like, what would shake them up? You know, it seems very, like, could they be a happy functioning couple? Like, does that exist?
I just feel like they put the whole Vegas thing in there in case Jamie's not available for season 3. So I can easily see it, season 3 starting and Shane's single.
Yeah, or it could be like, if Jamie was in only a handful of episodes, I could be like, oh, they're doing long distance or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating to have to write the storyline around the actors instead of just telling a cohesive story.
Yeah, but then again, it's like, I think we're making that assumption because Jamie has got a lot going on. I know she's doing something with Zack Snyder, which is like pretty big deal. So maybe it is something like that. But then I know Leisha and Kate were saying on Pants that like they're unemployed at the moment because they don't know what's going to happen with season 3, and it's hard to. People like Leisha and Kate in general, like, they're fully committed. They'll have, all the regulars will have their contracts with, if the show's renewed, then they are legally obligated to be there. But people like Jamie, who are not series regulars, like, that's a different story. So
yeah. And what happened to Shane's dog?
Yeah.
I was so excited at the beginning, like, oh, they kept the dog from season 1. Yay, it's cohesive. And then it disappeared. I was like, oh.
I think it was episode 3 the last time we saw the dog.
It was like walking into the poker place, wasn't it? Or sitting in the car waiting for takeout.
No, remember when it's like at the end when they're going and they have the money on the table. Yeah. I think that's the last time we saw it. Oh, G did not like that we were discussing the dog.
Maybe I'm just out of touch, but I was trying to think, like, I mean, what other series does Showtime even have to focus on that they
Dexter is coming out soon.
Yeah, but that's a limited release.
Yeah, it's
not a full.
Billions, The Shy. I think they're 2 of their biggest shows. City on a Hill.
I mean, those have been on for a while, right? Like, those are getting up there in years, aren't they?
Yeah, the Shy, I think, is like season 5 or 6.
I mean, that's usually when they start ending. And on Showtime, I know American Rust with Jeff Daniels is big.
That's new too.
Yeah, and there's another new one coming out, but to not renew what has been one of your most successful series, I don't know why. I don't know, unless it's still just things are so up in the air with COVID and filming schedules and just the industry in general. But
well, I heard something ridiculous the other day where like someone in the film industry was saying that they like wanted to book an actor for a movie, and the agent got back to them and said, "Oh yeah, that actor will be available in 3 years." That's how busy they are. Like that's how many projects they've got lined up. I was like, holy moly, that must be with everything then. Locations, production crew, everyone must just be fully booked out. And there was that whole thing when the strike was going on about like how normally in Hollywood there's only like 70 productions or something at one time, and now there's like 170 productions.
My gosh.
It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and like I've been open about, like, I've asked Showtime pretty consistently and a lot about season 3, and anytime I ask like why, or like what's taken so long, they always say just COVID has changed how we do things. And like It's City on a Hill took, I think it was a month or more after the finale that they renewed it. So I think it will be very soon that we hear. And I've said for a long time, like, I'm pretty confident they'll renew it. I'd be really surprised if, especially after all this time, they didn't renew it, because if you're just going to cancel it, just cancel it. Like, so I think
like what is it depending on?
Gee, you're very much in the middle of all of this.
She's our mascot.
Yeah, she's very wants to be very involved in this episode. So Shane, overall,
boring,
hit miss,
very very boring.
A bit boring. It's a bit weird for,
and she's my favorite character
Shane
too,
to be one of the most like level-headed of the entire
of
series.
The characters. Yeah,
the most interesting Shane Tess thing I think that happened all season was the night with Carrie when they were like helping her out. I feel like that was the most I was invested in any like
same
that they were in. So yeah, it's kind of like I really like Tess, but I guess it won't be that much of a hardship like for Shane, for the character of Shane. For me, if Tess doesn't return and be like, oh well, like same. I can just totally see them being like a little, season 1 or episode 1 of season 3, the OGs asking like, oh, so what happened, and just being explained away in a sentence that like,
well, yeah, or you'd be lucky with
and they're not together anymore.
If you got an explanation,
right? Exactly. But I am just sick from like.
Well, what is it? Checked into a mental hospital? What was it?
I mean, it's typical like drama series, but I'm just sick of couples not staying together very long. It's like I'm sick of getting like them working viewers all up to be like, oh, you should like this new couple, and then they like disappear in a few episodes with nothing happening. Like, why are we getting invested in any of them? So I mean, I know they have to keep it interesting, and so they've got to create drama and stuff, but I just want someone I can root for long term,
or at least give us like a Ross and Rachel. Will they, won't they, will they, won't they, will they, won't they?
Right, which I guess is what Bette and Tina are, but I don't want Bette and Tina.
I know, I'm else. Like, no, it's anyone else.
I'm going to get in trouble. I'm fine with Bette and Tina. I just would like someone else to have that feeling for. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have that feeling now for Danny and Gigi.
And part of me wondered with that whole like the first half of the season and the second half of the season kind of feeling like a little bit different. Part of me was like, oh, well, maybe they had different things written, but then Danny and Gigi were more popular, more interesting, so they gave them more screen time and took away.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have known at the time.
The characters.
Yeah, they don't, because everything's finished. Yeah, before it airs.
I mean, unless they saw it on screen and we're like, they're sizzling.
Right.
I don't know.
But then, like, Danny and Gigi had so little screen time in...
Yeah, that's true. Oh, well, that we know of, a lot of stuff could have been cut out.
Well, Marja did talk about the stuff that she cut out of the finale in Pants this week. And
I read that she said that she cut out Alice on the plane, but I'm like, Alice on the plane was not cut out.
No. There's another scene that Leisha said...
Cliffhanger.
No, it explained. Oh, like it made it not a cliffhanger, is what she said. That like there was like a big speech.
Oh, as in like Marja wanted it to be a cliffhanger, so she cut out.
Yeah, so they removed the scene. Yeah, and they removed that. They removed Maribel and Micah, and because there's
they weren't in the final episode, were they? Or were they?
Yeah, but that she removed it because there was Maribel's like moving to San Diego for a job. Apparently that was like my Spanish is really good, but apparently like there's something in the previous episode or the one before that where they're talking. Yeah. And the mom said something like, does he know about, I think it's San Diego, and she's like, no. And then, so they took Maribel and Micah out of the finale. And then the other thing they cut was apparently there was more to Bette and Tina on the doorstep.
Oh, yeah. Which I don't know why. Something that the audience is not privy to, I think she said.
Like, why? I don't know. The finale was so short that...
The thing that the audience is not privy to is Tina's car's just broken down at the front. She just needs to use her phone.
Well, when I did the interview with Marja, I said, "Oh, Tina's giving her a restraining order." She was like, "Oh, I'll use that." I was like, "Oh my god, I'd be murdered."
Could you imagine if she used some of your suggestions?
That'd be hilarious.
Hunted down.
You're right, Ash Silver.
You know what just hit me about Micah? It felt very progressive, I guess, last season, where Micah, as a trans man, was dating a gay man, and then this season we see him with presumably a straight woman. And I was just thinking, like, they need to thinking about how disappointed I've been in Micah's like relationships so far, and thinking, they should really put him with like a lesbian, kind of like Max and Jenny in the beginning. I mean, in our communities, we have a lot of trans men, and they generally date women who identify as like lesbians or bisexual. And so I'm like, I don't know. It just popped into my head, and I was picturing him
the trans woman
like,
for a second, the hot doctor.
Oh, I mean, one date.
Yeah, but that was the most like chemistry out of that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But yeah, I haven't liked his pairings, and I don't like them including him on the show as like, oh, we need a token trans person. Like,
but he serves no purpose in a way, like storyline wise. He just floats around. I feel like it feels like they're like, oh, let's write him this new job so that he can at least interact with a couple of other actors. That sort of felt a little forced.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too, and I know I keep saying this, but when Marja was on Pants, they were talking about like a viewer had basically said, "Oh, there's so many extra characters," and Marja said like, "Oh, I agree," and and Leisha and Kate said they did too, and it's like I don't think there's people always say like, oh, there's not this like asexuals on the show and this and that.
Like there's so many left out. Yeah.
But this and I say this all the time, and I know the people on the show say this all the time too, that like the show can't be everything for everyone. But at the end of the day, I don't think that we need to add extra characters just to tick a box, and like that is a criticism that a lot of people have. And I would like if they like had a character on, or like Micah or whatever, where they're like involved and in the storyline and not just like sidelined, because then they're just eating up minutes that are very precious, because we only get 600. I know it's a little bit shorter than that because they're not all an hour, but we basically get 600, and that's it for the entire season. So I just I don't think that they should be included just to tick a box, and either get them invested, get them like actually functioning in the storyline with everyone, or get them out. Like one of the two. I can't stand this like wishy-washy, you know, there just to tick a box thing.
Right. And I don't know how to solve that, because there's plenty of shows that have massive cast. Even a main, like a lot of times they think, oh, well, the core cast is like 5 or 6 people, like Friends.
Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, the extra people. But I used to always compare the original L Word to Queer as Folk, and it so vastly paled in comparison to Queer as Folk, it wasn't even funny. And then when Generation Q launched, I was like, finally, like this is written a lot better and it's more fast paced and everything. But now, I mean, I totally agree with you where it feels like bloated with characters. And Queer as Folk never felt that way to me. They had a ton of characters. They all had screen time. They all had stories. The stories made sense. They tied together. Everything was cohesive. And it never felt like things were rushed or falling through the cracks or storylines just dropped. So I'm like, it definitely is possible to tell these stories. And I don't know why. I don't know why it sometimes feels like the L Word just can't seem to manage that.
I mean, I do, you know, like I see more feedback and criticism than, and I'm just being like honest here, than anyone who's not on or associated with the show. Like I have a YouTube channel where literally 90% of what I talk about is the L Word, and people come to my channel to talk about the show and in the comment section. So even like I pretty much read everything that people write on social media or in my comments or whatever. And one of the biggest things that I see constantly mentioned is, I wish this X character had more screen time, this character had more screen time. I want to see, like, it's consistently the 3 OGs and Danny and Gigi. Like, that is what everybody seems to want to see. And I'm using everybody very loosely. Like, I understand there is people who their favorite character is Sophie and like Sophie and Finley, and there are people who their favorite character could be Maribel and stuff, but the majority of people who watch the show, Danny and Gigi are the most popular couple at the moment, like numbers wise, not talking about on social media, and the 3 OGs. So it just seems as though they're constantly like, the OGs have so little screen time, I feel like. And then when there's storylines like Bette and the Art World, or like Sophie's when she had that couple on to interview, that's just taking away more of the precious minutes, like on stuff that ultimately is not even important for the episode or the season. And that, like, that couple that was on Alice's show, like all that time that was taken for them, and then Sophie talking about it to Alice and things like that, even Sophie talking about it to Danny, like, why was all that time wasted when we're not even getting, you know?
Well, again, that feels like a checkbox to me. Like, oh yes, include local community, include real lesbians, tick.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's someone's friends from the set and they wanted to be on the show. Or like we don't know, you know. It could be like,
oh no, they're actresses. I checked on them.
Okay. So they're not real.
No, they're not real.
No, but they could be based on, you know, a story that somebody in the cast or crew, or like, it could be close to their hearts. Like, oh, I know these 2 old ladies and this is their story, blah, whatever. Like, it just feels like that's why.
I mean, Rosie the Riveter and things like that are real, so I guess that, you know, it was something to do with that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I felt like that could have gone somewhere as well. I was expecting
I
that
expected
to go
it
somewhere.
to.
Yeah, and it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, you probably are right about the limited minutes, because I guess for my comparison for Queer as Folk, the first 2 seasons were back when they did 20 plus episodes in a season, you know?
Oh yeah, that makes a big difference.
8-10 episode BS that like every show is now.
Oh yeah, it's way too short now.
Yeah.
But that's why, like, I think it on shows like this, where you like literally it is precious minutes, because when you
pack
have
it all in.
a big show like Grey's Anatomy that has 22, 24 episodes a season, you have all this time to fill in and play and like have silly stuff like that, like, oh, we're going to talk about Rosie the Riveter. But literally, when you are, the reason that you have these limited series and 10 episode seasons is because it's supposed to just be all top like quality stuff. And when you look at, like, I don't know, a show like The Queen's Gambit or The Crown, like, they don't spend any time on filler bullshit, because they know that every minute of screen time is precious and is developing the main characters, the main storyline. And there were so many things that over the season I was like kind of giving them a pass, because again, I thought it was going somewhere. Like, if I reviewed the episodes now separate and knowing like where the season ends, I would review them very differently, because even I spent like I had a whole video talking about Bet and Tina theory and other things that ultimately just like Shane's gambling and Alice's show and all these other things that just went nowhere.
Yeah, like you said, Queen's Gambit and stuff. Everything is left in there. Everything in there moves the story along.
Well, those kinds of
shows. We had so many Chekhov's gun moment where it's like, where this is going to come back around at some point. And
because you're used to that. You're used to like things being set up and then them being followed through from all the other shows you watch, or at least from all the shows I watch. And like that's when I compare the L Word to like, say something like on Amazon Prime, there's The Wilds, which was only 10 episodes. Like, those are the shows where like you blink and an episode's finished and you're like, oh my god, that was so good. And then you compare it to the L Word, which is really slow. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, what? How far into the episode are we? And like, how long is there to go? Like, nothing's happened yet. I feel like even in the finale, I was at like 40 minutes in and I was like, nothing's happened yet.
Yeah. I did feel that way about the finale. Like, if you took out the cliffhangers from the finale, I just there was so many things left undone, and then I was disappointed by the finale. So speaking, I mean, like, we talked pretty much about a lot of people there, but I was gonna say, speaking about maybe Alice and Nat, and then Alice and Tom. And I mean, Alice's show, like, we saw little tidbits, but
not nearly the focus it was in the season 1, though.
No, not at all. Which, again, like, I really liked that aspect of seeing Alice's show.
But again, it's COVID and you can't have an audience kind of thing.
Yeah.
Still show the stage and her doing the show. You just didn't cut to the audience that much, maybe.
Well,
or even like the behind the scenes.
There was the whole, like, the guest stars coming on. Ooh, it was Megan Raponi and like whoever else was coming on the show. And now there was like, she would mention that British Bake Off guy or whatever coming off the set. That was a bit weird.
Well, and there was so much in season 1 was about who's in charge of Alice's show. Like, it's her show, but then you have these straight white men pulling the strings and that sort of conflict. And then I can't even remember how that was resolved in season 1.
I feel like
because it just sort of started as if like none of that was a problem anymore. So
I feel like they didn't address that at all.
Yeah, so I sort of felt a little off kilter the whole time. Like, is Alice's show different now? What is it? I mean, it seemed different, but is that not an issue anymore? I don't know. I was a bit confused.
It was like they got bored of that storyline, so they just moved on to the next one.
Yeah, because at the end of season 1, remember, they were like, oh, this might be the last show. And then she was like, oh, get Roxanne gay. And then at the end of season 1, I remember being like, okay, I guess we're supposed to, like, it's implied that the show, like the whole thing with Nat and like the viral moment, like, I guess the audience was supposed to just make those assumptions. But I mean, we did see that guy again who's in charge of the network or whatever talking to Sophie and Finley. So it's like he seemed really, you know, taken with them and on their side now. So I guess it's all good. But I thought there was the thing that I was most disappointed by with Alice's storyline was the book. I think that, well, I thought they were going to use that like more effectively, because although like I liked the Tom and Alice scene about Dana, I think that the book launch scene, like they just talked about Alice's feelings for Dana there, and I feel as though they should have used either something from the original that we all OG fans like collectively remember as like a bright spot, and like maybe giving some information that we didn't have, like I don't know, when Alice, Bette and Shane go and steal the sign or something like that, or give us information from the intervening 10 years that we haven't had. And instead of like, there was so many mentions of Dana and so many other things this season that I like the little things. Like I liked Bette saying, oh, I can call Peggy and things. I don't think they need to be super heavy handed with the fan service, or that shouldn't be driving the show. But I would have liked a little bit of, I don't know, them talking about something that happened in between the OG and Gen Q instead of like another Dana story, even though like obviously I like Dana and stuff like that.
It was definitely, it's fun for the fans to have those moments, and that was kind of the main sort of, I feel like, emotional high of the season was that scene about Dana. But yeah, you're totally right. I still have no idea how Alice got a show, and like,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it kind of feels like those little cookie bits are all like kind of bribes. Like
yeah,
and keep you interested,
right? And like when this series started, and Alice is with Nat, and we have no idea like how long they've been together, and now I realize I think it was a lot shorter than we actually thought they were.
Well, Tom says in like one of the earlier episodes, so you met Nat at the LGBTQ center, I think it's 3 or 4 years ago. He says something like that. So it's not that long ago.
Yeah, I was never a Nat fan. I was not a fan of Alice and Nat together.
No, me neither.
So I was glad for them, the storyline of them breaking up.
I was glad, but then that she moved on to Tom, I was like, oh no. I do one boring storyline to another boring storyline. I was like,
I like Tom, and I like their friendship.
I like the character of Tom, but he's a little bit boring. I don't know.
But is it him, or is it the way that L Word handles bisexual relationships that makes it difficult?
No, because they could have given them a cool, interesting storyline, but it was just a bit meh for me. Like as a love story, like, oh, book editor, yep, cool, in love, yep, a little bit of conflict.
They had like some of the best banter though of any character.
Oh yeah, the banter was good. I feel like that's Donald. He's very bantery in most of his roles.
Yeah, and I feel like they sort of set up what we assume this conflict is going to be about Alice having to come out as bisexual and how difficult that's going to be. And I felt like they kind of built it up, and then it wasn't really that much of a big deal. It was like in one episode, she came out to everyone. It was like, oh, okay, well, there's that hurdle passed. Like nothing really happened.
There was just that one lesbian journalist that hung up on her.
Yeah, it kind of felt like they were setting up this conflict that just
that might possibly be addressed in season 3. Like the fallout of it, because she's.
I feel like the way that was all season, like we were like, oh, this is going somewhere. This now will be replaced by, but in season 3.
Well, like I said, maybe it's the slow game, and they're just building it up. This is actually the whole season is one giant long bookend.
Yeah, but
the other end of the bookend will be like season 6.
Some of these interviews have made me lose hope that there is some master plan, because
Yeah, maybe there's zero master plan.
We haven't even gotten to my most disappointed storyline of the season yet.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe.
I don't know, again, I think that any television program, there's always going to be people complaining. There's always going to be people thinking that they can do a better job. And, it is so much more complicated than everybody makes out. And also people are always like, oh, take ideas from this and that and blah, blah, blah. But people post a lot of bad ideas too that would never work. And I've always thought that in my dream world, if I was a writer or I was writing for the show, that I would have some, if we get, I don't know, map out, if we have 5 seasons of the show, this is where I want the characters to end up, or this is where I want Bette going, or it just, I would think that there was a season. Oh, sorry. I would think that there's an overarching season plan and then an overarching series plan. But I don't think there is a series plan.
That's like storytelling 101, right? Like every series should have that. The good ones do, and they don't always know where they're going to end up. I mean, we've heard the interviews with other showrunners where sometimes they're like, oh yeah, 5 years ago when I pitched this idea, I knew exactly what the last scene of the series was going to be.
Yeah, like The Good Place or something.
I had an idea for season 1, and then we just kind of figured it out as we went.
Yeah.
So it does go back and forth. But yeah, I mean, at a bare minimum, you should have your stories for the season mapped out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like just the shows that, and again, it's like personal preference too. Like I look at the shows that, if I got my dream job and I was a writer, the people I'd be like, okay, this is the gold standard, is shows like The Good Place. Amazing show. They ended it at 4 seasons because they knew exactly where they were going. One of the first season finale of The Good Place is one of the best episodes of television, period. And then there's other shows that people like for other reasons. The Office should have ended it way earlier, but it's a great, amazing show, one of the best. There's Lost. Lost is gold. Like everybody was captivated by Lost. They knew exactly where they were going, what was happening. So yeah, I don't know. But Eileen didn't have a series plan, I don't think either. So, but then we ended up with a murder mystery in the fucking 6 seasons.
Oh, no, I don't know. I feel like they ran out of ideas and they just had like all these ideas on a dice and they just rolled it and it went murder mystery and they were like, oh really? Oh, I guess. I
haven't even watched Roswell this season because they blew up all the storylines in the off season.
It kind of wasn't that great after that.
Yeah, I haven't watched this. I've watched I think 2 episodes of the season. So, Finley and Sophie?
Oh god.
This. Okay.
Take it away, Jess.
Finley and Sophie I'm fine with. But let me tell you about my most disappointed, my biggest disappointment from this season is the fact that we didn't find out what happened with Finley in the off season. That was what I was most looking forward to going into season 2. After the season 1 cliffhanger with Sophie running through the airport and it was the who will she choose sort of moment, that and followed by or in relation to Finley going home to Missouri, that was what I was most interested to learn about this season, and we learned nothing.
Nothing.
And what we knew before was like, oh, Finley's sister is apparently getting married and no one bothered to tell her. Like there's some family stuff happening there.
And she didn't get on with her parents, right? Or her dad.
Right, yeah.
The parents kicked her out, yeah.
Massive stuff about like religion, which was all brought up in season 1.
Yeah.
And then she comes back in season 2, sober, just telling us that, oh yeah, it happened off season in Missouri with like nothing, no explanation of any family conflict or anything that happened. And to me, that was the most interesting part of the storyline, and we got absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Can I tell you also that Showtime actually double screwed us on this, because we were led to believe that we were going to get some backstory on Finley. But then, when at the end of the season, when the finale was coming out on National Coming Out Day, and I did that video with Showtime and said my coming out story, they originally told me that when I released my video, they were releasing Finley, Micah, and Gigi's own coming out stories. And even because I shot my, like, I worked so hard on that video, because obviously, like, it was a big deal to me, and I filmed it and edited it and had it done like 2 weeks in advance. So I was told that, so I put it in my video, like, oh, now go over to Showtime and they'll, you know, see some of the characters sharing their own coming out stories. I'm excited to hear Gigi and Finley's. And it just didn't happen. Nothing happened. No explanation, no nothing. They put like a little clip thing up of like Nat and Angie, like 2 clips from the show, and Tina was in it too, I think. And I was like, what?
Wait, did they use yours though? The one that you'd show?
They put mine up on like social media. Yeah, and like, and I was, but yeah, so yeah, because I was like, oh, you know, maybe we're gonna get like, because they literally said
like a little bonus content, like the interrogation tapes.
Oh, so yeah, that I don't know what, like.
They shot them and then the PA accidentally deleted them or something.
I mean, they have to have shot them, like, they have to have, because everybody else was working on other projects when they were telling me this. Like, I think they shot them the same day that, like, you know, they did that behind the scenes video that Jack did, and then there was the one where, like, Gigi's in the mirror and it goes round and it's like, Tina is engaged, what the hell, that little video, do you remember? It was just before the season. It was cute. It was like the best thing they did for. Yeah, it went around to each character, and it was like the same. You know, those ones they did for Pride and all that stuff with the, like, not the peach background, but it was like the really dark peachy pink when these posters came out. It was all like, they looked like they did all the promos on the same day, because they're all wearing the same outfits. But yeah, I was really disappointed by that too. I really wanted to know, like, Finley's backstory and stuff, because there's still tons of people that, like, come out and aren't. I mean, there's people in countries where it's still illegal to be gay, but there's still people living in the US, the UK, Australia, in places that everybody's like, oh, we're beyond that now, like, we're all tied up and everything's sorted. And it's like, it's not that way. Like, yes, you know, in big cities, for certain people it's okay, no one cares, but there's people who still deeply, deeply care, and it's very difficult for them. And I would have thought this was a good way of speaking to those viewers who are watching the L Word in secret, probably.
Yeah. But like you said earlier, like, that every minute should be precious. I'm like, I feel like they wasted so much time showing us, like, oh, Finley drunk, and oh, look at Finley being drunk again and drinking, and oh, another storyline about drunk and DUIs and whatever. And I'm like, all that time could have been filled with, like, her family conflict instead.
Oh yeah, the reasoning for why we have the behavior,
right? But, like, she didn't need to be an alcoholic this season. Like, she could have just been dealing with her own family, which is what we wanted to see.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, both of those issues, substance abuse is a big issue in the queer community. But yeah, they've set us up now for 2 seasons and not delivered on this backstory. And I mentioned this before, but the entire first season I watched live in with a group of people locally. Like, 30, 40 lesbians watching it at a theater. And I mean, obviously, first of all, with Finley supposedly being from Kansas City, people were very excited about that character. But also, so many people got up and told their stories, and they did talk about watching the original L Word in secret, like, sitting in their closet at night, hiding their laptop from their parents or whatever way that they had to, sneak a copy from the library or something like that, or go to a friend's house to watch it, because there's no way that they could, watch it at home, or there's no way they could come out to their parents. And so many of those stories were also wrapped up in religion and conservative religions, which was part of Finley's, family history, and part of her source of, I think, anxiety and a bit of, shame. We see kind of shame wrapped up in Finley's story, with, especially in season 1, with her not being able to have any sexual encounters without being intoxicated. So many people that I know, connected with that conservatism and the family issues and the religion issues. And so I was really excited to learn more about that. So I still hold out hope, I guess, for season 3.
Yeah, season 3. Well, that's what I was saying earlier. I was like, I feel like they may be saving all of that for season 3, but like,
and I guess that's like an audience as well that is like, there's not a lot of portrayal of that in the media. Like, it's one way or the other. Like, it's very parents that kick you out and blah blah blah, or it's parents that are accepting and don't care. Like, there's not a lot of conservative lesbians, there's not a lot of Christian lesbians, or anything like that. So I think that would have been a great thing to portray, and especially like what it's like living somewhere like California, where it is very different from what you're used to and stuff like that. And when I moved to Tampa when I was like 16 and lived there my whole adult life until I was like 32 or something, and a few years ago, and it's very like that there. Like, yes, it's Florida, but it's a pocket of very rich white Christian conservatives, and it was very different going there as a European lesbian. So,
well, and as you said, you see the two extremes represented on TV, but so much of reality is in the middle, is and those in betweens. And we see that with Finley's family, where it's not like they've completely disowned her. I mean, she can call them up and talk to them and stuff, but she's very obviously on the outside. You kind of get the impression that she wouldn't be welcome if she brought a female date to her sister's wedding or something. There's a lot of those sort of family interactions where it's like, oh yeah, like,
willful
ignorance. We know you're queer, just don't talk about it. Like, don't embarrass us, kind of thing.
But did she get kicked out, or did she leave home?
The thing that I read said she got kicked out.
Yeah. And that's another thing that like pissed me off this season, was like, supposedly Sophie being her best friend, and supposedly like Sophie knowing her quite well, and she's like, there was that whole scene where she's like, oh, can you even look after yourself? Can you cook? Like, it was so like, I don't know, like condescending, and like, you should know better. Like, if that she left home when she was 16 or whatever, right, and has fended for herself. And
there were those moments where all of a sudden it was like, wait, did they not actually know each other at all?
Yeah,
like,
I felt like
how
they
long
were
friends?
But I didn't feel like they were compatible at all.
Yeah, we were given that impression in season 1 that they were like best friends.
And, they did really well in season 1. I liked them as best friends. I wish they'd just kept them as best friends. They were like so cool, like bro brothers, like checking out women together. It would have been funny. They could have done a whole comedy thing with them in season 2, of like them scoping women out and sleeping with each other's I don't know. It could have been funny instead of being so serious.
I don't know. I was definitely shipping them together, but then season 2 Sophie was difficult to like.
I think they made her into a villain, like, unintentionally.
Yeah, she just wasn't very likable.
And some of the things, like, they did things that I was like, it's just an odd choice. Like, the episode where they're at, it's like the when they're out after the DUI, and Sophie's like, have you been drinking? And it's like, yes, you've been with her the entire night. Like, she's been getting you drinks. Like, just things like that it's like such a, I don't know, it's odd.
Yeah, I feel like they brought it back around at the end a little bit with Sophie explaining that Finley's actions scare her. And so you can kind of see like, okay, I guess I get some of your actions, and but yeah, watching through it the first time, it just seemed like, oh wow, so Sophie's a liar and she's kind of mean, and you just kept seeing all these sort of negative aspects of her personality, and puppy dog Finley just kept showing up. So I'm still a fan of them. I still like them as a couple, so I'm hopeful for season 3. But yeah, so most of my disappointment wasn't necessarily their relationship. It was mostly lack of Finley's backstory, even though, like I said, it was difficult to root for Sophie this season.
So, my favorites, Danny and Gigi.
I was just thinking about that. I was like, if Danny and Gigi had not got together this season,
yeah,
like,
it'd be a dark world.
Yeah, well, for me, they saved the season. Like, if you took them out of it, the rest of the season would have been boring.
Yeah.
But
if Gigi wasn't in the show, it would be it would be a
the show for sure.
She really
But I
did
was thinking
hers.
like
she saved the show and she saved Danny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But if they hadn't have hooked those two together, I would have loved to see Gigi paired up with Finley. I think they would be really hot.
That's what
you just see by my face. I definitely do not agree with that assessment. Gosh, that's just because you want to be Finley. That's why. I know you.
Oh, yeah, no, I do.
I know you.
No, but like there was that photo of them from the premiere last season, them holding hands, and I was like, they would actually be quite good together. Like visually,
the actresses would be the characters. Actresses. Never in a million years.
Yeah, but they could have twisted it in a way where they could have got them together. There's nothing.
Marsha said when I interviewed her that they were trying to hook up Finley and Bette.
Yeah, no.
Makes sense. Good God, Finley's like less mature than Angie. What the hell?
I'm just trying to think of how they would even do that. Because Bette would never take Finley seriously. So I'm like,
no, she said they were having like trouble working
seriously. One of the most
they were having trouble working it out.
Series.
Like, I wonder what made them think that though. Like, were they suddenly like, fooling around off set, like, like not, just messing around or whatever, and like they would have seen the chemistry and been like, oh, those two.
Is there like a female version of like a daddy boy relationship? Because it's very popular in gay circles is all I'm saying, but I don't see the same thing. Like lesbian Bette would be like, yeah.
Or the only way I could see that the only way I could see that happening would be like say like Bette goes to like a dominatrix club or something where she's blindfolded and it just happens to be Finley who's doing something and she doesn't know that it's Finley, but then she finds out it's Finley and then she's like, oh my god, it's you, and then like they have that conflict of like, oh, but you're you, but oh, you did that thing that I really liked.
Finley is a people pleaser.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. That's the only way I could kind of see that happening.
Well, that took a weird turn. Anyway.
Back to Danny and Gigi.
Danny went from one of my least favorite character last season.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah,
to
least favorite.
Being completely redeemed by this story.
Oh, yeah, yep.
I liked her in season 1 too. And I have loved Gigi since the moment I saw her first season. She was the girl for me. So all these people now.
Yeah, I think she's come a long way though since we first saw her as crazy psycho ex nailing the wedding.
No kidding.
See, that's when I knew I loved her.
I was like, oh, but she's come.
I love a crazy brunette. All about the crazy brunette. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. The only thing that made me think in season 1 was that like, oh, she's way more interesting than Nat. Why isn't Alice with her instead? Just with boring Nat. Yeah. But I think I just, with Danny and Sophie, I never felt them at all in the first season, and I think that's what made me dislike Dani so much. She was kind of a bee. She was a bit
like a cardboard cutout of nothing.
Yeah. So I disliked her because their relationship was a bit, not really toxic, it's not the right word, but it just wasn't a good fit. So they revealed so much more of Dani's personality, of what makes her tick, of why her actions are the way they are. They made her so much more vulnerable, that she was so much more likable, with Gigi sort of
gave her a
pulling her out of her shell a little bit. Yeah, exactly. We don't get, like you said, that L-Word's notorious for, like, we have no idea where Tina came from. Like, what's her story? So L-Word's notorious for, like, not giving us these stories, and we actually got so much conversation between Gigi and Dani about like kind of growing up and the relationship.
We even got
with
Gigi
parents.
backstory.
Yeah, and it was intriguing, and again, something that I think a lot of viewers can identify with.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I did like we did get like you said, we did get backstory on Gigi, which is very rare. And even though their screen time was limited, especially towards the latter half of the season, everything about their story, like I really, that my only complaint about them is the lack of screen time. Literally, like, I think that
full sex scene with them either, did we? We got like sex scenes with like a bunch of other people that I did not want to see. But then with them, they cut their sex scene just as it was about to start.
Yeah.
And they never came back to them, which I thought was odd. I feel like they missed a steamy opportunity there.
Yeah, I'm sure, I'm hoping that they have taken notice of how insanely popular they are and insanely loved they are. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see more of them in season 3.
Well, I think the actresses know, because, you know, they played up to the cameras at Henrietta Hudson's. So, we want more of that, please. Or Ash wants more of that.
Yeah. Bette and Pippa, Bette and Gigi, Bette and the art world, Bette in general for me has been a yawn fest, but that's been from season 1 and the dialogue of "Let's make a baby." Since then, I've been like zoned out of
You're
Bette.
Like, pass.
I'm like, I like fast forward through Bette.
Bette and Gigi was another highlight of the season for me.
There's Gigi there, so that was
my 2 favorite characters.
But again, the way Bette treated her, I was like, no.
Yeah, that did annoy me. Yeah, that did annoy me. And
biggest takeaway of Bette this season was like CAC or Provocations Chapter 2. That was what I felt like all season.
I know, anything like art. As soon as she was like, I'm gonna go back to art, I was like, oh god, shoot me now. More art.
Yeah, I mean, that goes into the Precious Minutes thing again. Like, I feel like there was so much stuff, like art stuff, like even that Isaac Zakarian guy, like they made a big deal about when they announced Rosie coming on the show and Donald, they announced him, and like he wasn't even really in it. And then, I mean, I guess we'll also talk about Tina and Carrie here. The episode that like I probably enjoyed watching the most was episode 9, where all the OGs were together, and I just don't understand why, when they had like Rosie O'Donnell, you know, there, and like everybody loved having her there, and having Laura Holloman for 5 episodes, why you'd wait till episode 9 to have them all together. I feel like there was
episode 1.
Yeah, there was so many times that you could have just like there should have been a scene where they're all at lunch or whatever, you know, like just like a good scene like that. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy important, but yeah, I mean, I also feel like the whole, like, I feel like they used Pippa as just another one that it was like when they mentioned that she had a son, it was like, oh, just to tick that box so that that she ticks all Bette's boxes. And I feel as though, especially if they had Vanessa Williams for like the entire season nearly, and it seems as though she'll be back in some capacity in season 3, I would have preferred if they like built her as a actual character first and rounded her out, instead of just being like
a love interest.
Like and I feel like they didn't really what do we know about her? Like, she likes art, and that's pretty much it. And just the whole like, you know, I mean, there were things that I thought it was interesting about, like Bette definitely seemed to be a lot more vulnerable with Pippa than like we've seen her be with anyone else, obviously bar Tina. But yeah, I also thought it was I feel like, would Bette really go there? And the business thing, it got like all kind of messy too, and I just feel like there was a lot of time, again, precious minutes wasted on like the art stuff, and I didn't like that they had Bette and Danny because fight, because I kind of like their relationship. And yeah, there was I did it like the Bette and Gigi stuff, and like I do think Bette is, whether, you know, if you really had to like get down to main characters, like Bette is one of, if not the main character, and a lot of stuff exists in her orbit. And I think that if you had Bette and Tina like get back together like that you are sidelining one of the best characters, like, because Laurel can't commit to the show, like, that is just fact. So I know that people say, oh well, she could be on Zoom or whatever. Like, that doesn't work. After an episode, that's boring, and it just gets silly, like, because we all know. And people say, oh, they can film Laurel's things all together. They can't do that. Like, that, you would have to have an entire separate budget and production staff to do that. And all these, like, people think that you can do all these gimmicky things. Like, if you have 2 more, 3 more seasons of the show, you can. So I just don't know where they go from here, because I feel like with the way they've set this cliffhanger up, they're gonna shoot themselves in the foot, because
it'll be the same as what it ended last time, where we're not gonna find out any.
If Bette chooses Pippa, people will be irate because she's chosen, like,
but it might not even be a choice.
But if there's no choice, like the whole, like last season with Sophie and Danny, if she chooses, like, I just don't even think the choice of Tina's there, because like the conversation I saw at Alice's party, like, Tina definitely didn't seem to be there. So if they say something like, oh, let's talk and then like work towards something or things, people will be angry too. So I don't know why, like, what's going on, like, because I felt as though with them having, well, what I thought them having a series master plan, I thought that they were going to basically, like, they had them divorced because Laura Hallman couldn't be on the show, but they were like, okay, let's have them either just co-parent and that's it, that's the end of it, or if they're actually having this storyline to work back to each other, that towards the end of whatever the series is, then I just don't think that plan is there now, because I just think that this, like, I did like the cliffhanger because I do like Bette and Tina, but I just don't know where they go from here. And I think that no matter what they do, like, it's gonna be.
Well, I still think they're going to do what they did last season, where it's just going to pick up and it's like months later or weeks later.
Yeah, no, I absolutely don't think they're going to pick up straight away.
Yeah, they won't do like what happened at the door. We'll be lucky if we find out what happened at the door.
Yeah.
Like maybe Tina will just not be around at all, or we'll just hear about her getting married to Kerry. Like the wedding happened already or something. Yeah, if they get Rosie back, then it could be episode 1 is the wedding.
I just don't think they would ever do that because, again, like time, the guest stars don't have time to have
I kind of wish, though, that if they were going to bring Rosie back, they'd bring her back as a separate character, not tied to Tina.
Yeah.
Like get her to have her own storyline, you know.
I love Carrie and Angie's relationship.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of Carrie and Tina. I think they should get married. Carrie's stepmom would be great, and we get to see a lot of Bette being really flustered and like having to go see Angie's play, and now Tina and Carrie are there.
Well, you can kind of solve it in that way, like Carrie would be in it more, and Tina would be missing, but implied that she's there. Like you wouldn't need to have Laura Holman in it.
With that, honestly,
yeah,
I'd be so good with that. I love Rosie on this show. I think that would be fantastic. And you'd still like everyone freaking out about Bette and Tina being endgame. You still have a lot of years theoretically, you know, until you get to the end of the series. Even if Tina and Carrie do get married, that doesn't mean it's forever. I mean, not to be a total anti-romantic, but just to be, you know.
Well, like, true Elwood style, you know, no one ever stays together.
Well, yeah. I mean, you never know what could happen, so it's not like the end of the world if they do. It'd be a lot of interesting storylines, I think, and you wouldn't even need to have them on the show. Like, again, it could just be just how Tina was in the first season, where it's like, oh, I talked to her today on the phone, kind of thing. You don't need need to be there to be part of the storyline. And I don't know. I personally didn't see chemistry between Pippa and Bette, but I do agree with Ash that like Bette's way more vulnerable than we've seen her around Pippa, which is kind of funny to me because you see, like, we've always pictured Bette as this like power business woman, you know, like toughest chick in the room kind of thing, and I was just picturing her like being all vulnerable with Pippa, like moving to like a farm where she has her like artist studio. Are we gonna see like Bette in like paint splattered coveralls or something? And she just totally
going out to get
her,
like some eggs from the chicken coop.
Right. She leaves her like really wealthy LA lifestyle behind.
See, now that would be interesting.
I'm like, we see Bette as like, this is who she is. What if she really isn't? What if this is just that persona she shows to the world because it's like a protective thing, you know?
Well, that's where the mother storyline could have come in, which also led nowhere.
What storyline?
The Bette's mother. How she mentioned the mother.
Yes.
Where I was like, oh, cool, Bette backstory. And then like, went nowhere.
Her parents and her relationship with her race and everything and how she's perceived in the world and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of ways it could go, but I don't see the sexual chemistry between them. But
no, me either. But it almost feels like, you know, that they hire these famous actors and actresses who maybe they put their hand up to be on the show, or for whatever reason they get accepted to be on the show, and then they kind of have to slot them in somewhere. Like, Vanessa Williams wants to be on the show. Where can we put her? Like, I guess we can hook her up with Bette. Like, it just feels like they didn't do like a chemistry test with, you know, Jennifer Beals and Vanessa Williams and went, oh, look at that. That's great. Let's have them be a couple. It feels more forced in that way. Like they pick the actor to play such and such without actually seeing if there is.
Yeah, because I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's that, like for actors have that thing of, oh, I'm playing a lesbian and things like that. And I don't know. We're moving into that place where, well, I would like to move into that place where it's just like, you know, you don't have to make a big deal about playing a lesbian because it's just like, I mean, the ultimate goal is to be like, when you talk about sexuality, you're talking about like, oh, guess what? Like, I have blonde hair and Jess has brown hair, like that, you know, it's just like a little descriptor. It's not like the biggest thing in the world. And I feel as though still it's this moniker of, oh, I'm playing a lesbian, I'm kissing women, like.
Yeah, that's when all those actresses do those interviews, and they have the whole interview is basically them letting the audience and the journalists know that they're very straight, but they're playing this lesbian.
Yeah, oh,
but they're
yeah,
very
yeah,
straight.
yeah.
But they have a husband and kids, but they're very straight, but they're playing this lesbian.
And did you know that they're straight?
Yeah, exactly. That's what those interviews feel like.
Yeah.
See, I had to actually look her up because she's not famous to me. I mean, when
she
you
was
first
on
said Vanessa
Melrose
Williams,
Place.
I'm like, Vanessa Williams, but it's like, oh no, not the super famous Vanessa Williams,
not the singer,
I thought it was her too.
not the one from
and
Ugly
the
Betty.
Miss America, right?
No.
I thought it
Which was
her too.
hi. That's who I was super excited about seeing paired with Jennifer Beals. But
Oh yeah, I could see that.
right? That would have been freaking.
But this Vanessa Williams was on Melrose Place.
She's been in a million things. I just either
I only know her from
haven't
Melrose
seen them or
Place.
don't remember. I don't remember her in Melrose Place or The Cosby Show specifically. I never watched Chicago Hope. I'm searching her IMDb page right now. She's been in a million things. I never watched Soul Food. I never watched. So yeah, she's probably known to other people, but to me, I'm like, oh yeah, she's the same name as the more famous Vanessa Williams.
Sad.
Who I would have liked to have seen tested the
Oh,
chemistry between.
Yeah, I
and
would have
Jennifer
seen. I
Beals.
would have watched that.
Yeah, you can't close mouth kiss on the L word.
What about Angie and Geordie? I was expecting more, considering. Remember, Ash? She kept saying, "Oh, Geordie said they had quite a storyline this season," and I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's why I'm
"Did
like,
they though?"
wow.
Like, because that was like a blip kind of a story.
I mean, I just never,
Like a lot got cut out, maybe.
I just never really talk about like their storyline or anything like that, because I just, I don't know. I feel like there's they're so young, so it's like a line that I just never really.
Yeah, like
It's
like you
only
said earlier,
if if it's super like the therapy scene I would talk about because it's relevant to Bette and Tina and Carrie, but I would just never talk about their storyline by themselves.
Yeah, but it's like, for me personally, like if I was in charge of the show, from season 1, I wouldn't have had the character of, like I would have had the character of Angie be like popping in every now and then, but I wouldn't have
Yeah.
had her be a standalone with her own storyline. Because like you said, every minute is precious. I'm like, I feel like all that storyline was wasted as well on other characters that could have had more time. Like I get they're trying to like cater to the younger LGBTQ youth, whatever. But I'm like, I don't know if this is the show for them. Like, they need to have their own teen youth lesbian show. Well,
Yeah, because I've had people in my comments say, when I say I want to see more OGs, they're like, no, we want to see more Geordie and Angie because they're the future of the show. And I'm like, okay.
I feel like that's in a minority.
Yeah, I have basically zero interest in Angie and Geordie as a relationship storyline. I was interested in Angie's storyline about her donor and that sort of the drama with, Bette and Tina and how people were reacting to that. And again, it was it was a lot of buildup. It was not that it didn't go anywhere. It went somewhere. It just didn't have the conclusion that I was anticipating
I felt like
the whole time.
For me, it felt like it went nowhere. Like, because
it just ended. So it's
like
now it's like done and dusted. That storyline's over. We don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
When you could have had years,
felt like,
essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it felt like it was built up, and then all of a sudden just really quickly just ended. Yeah. With like no mention of the fact that she could have donated a kidney or whatever. Like, I don't know what happened to that. Like, I fully thought that by the finale she would be in hospital donating the kidney. Yeah, I thought that's what they were going to be doing.
But even just delving into that whole, Bette's relationship with not being the birth mother and having this donor to deal with. I mean, you could really, there's a lot of story that could come from that. So to just sort of wrap it all up kind of easily with like, oh, we're just going to kill him off. he's dead. Goodbye to that storyline. Like, okay, I guess we don't have to deal with any of that, and she's gonna be totally fine. Like,
well, unless,
yeah, I think it would have been made. Okay.
Yeah, unless for season 3 you do the whole she's getting to know the rest of the family.
I mean, we've introduced the sister now, which
the sister.
Their relationship was interesting, but
again, where is that going to go? Like,
yeah, I think it would have been way, like Jess said, it would have been way more interesting to keep him alive, or her to save him, and then it's like, what does that mean that like she has saved this guy's life, and like and then having Bette deal with Angie having this relationship with him and his family, like that would have been way more interesting.
Yeah. Maybe does Angie's sister go to a public school, do we think?
I think so, because she's wearing her own clothes.
That's what I thought. I'd feel more interested if she like hung out more with her sister and then met someone new to date at the public school instead of like kind of privileged, spoiled private school Geordie, because again, that's another interaction that Bette has issues with.
But I think they go to public school now.
Oh, that was a whole thing with Bette running for mayor. It's like pulling her out of.
And she wears her own clothes to school. That's normally how I define it. If the kids are wearing a uniform or not. Which is weird, because in the UK everyone wears a uniform, even in public
same
school.
in Australia. We all wear a uniform.
You also call your high schools colleges, so.
We don't.
We do that for sixth form, for like junior and senior year. Well, actually, my school was called college, so yeah.
Well, yeah, mine was called
I should probably redact that.
No, we don't.
Well, we don't call it that. You don't say I'm going to college. You say I'm going to high school.
And the word college is in the name.
Yeah, of some of the places, but that's like the building name or whatever.
We say high school, but I know that's only like American bastardization, because everybody wants to be cool and be like on, I don't know, I'm going to age myself by saying Beverly Hills 90210, but not Beverly Hills, whatever, Vampire Diaries or some shit.
So throw proms now, because Hollywood.
Because
when people go to me, oh, you're American? Oh, yeah, I went to high school, like as if to be like, I know the words.
So are we doing like a rating out of 10, or what are we doing? Are we using the scale you came up with the other day? What are the numbers?
So to explain my rating system, Jess, I don't know whether you've seen it. The rating system is as follows, and you can also watch this as a video on YouTube, so I'll put it on the screen for anyone watching on YouTube. But basically, top tier is, for me, the most lesbian moment of season 2, which was Bette and Gigi fucking on the kitchen counter and Bette ripping off her ring. So that was my...
Is that your number one? That's the best top rating.
That.
Oh god.
Yeah, that's a top lesbian, like that is just
most lesbian
cliche lesbian moment. So that's number one.
I did not do my homework for this.
Number 2 is Wheezy's construction job on Bette and Tina's house, because she did a good job, but she never returned to fix the railing. So there was a little bit at the end that just...
Who's Wheezy?
I know, I'm like, who?
Oh my
god. Is
god.
this in the show?
Wheezy!
I don't even know what you want. What are you talking
about? The legendary L-word character, Wheezy from season 6, where she's like...
God, I blanked out all of season 6. You can't bring back season 6.
I tried to pretend that didn't even happen.
No.
I'm like, there was construction?
This rating system is flawed.
When they're like, the railing, in the finale of the L Word, when they're like, the railing, did you see the railing? And then Jenny...
How is that number 2, though?
Because it's Wheezy did a good job, but there's just a little something that, you know, didn't quite make it top tier, but, you know. And then number 3 is Shane's dog, because there was a good bit in the beginning, but then it just went nowhere. And, you know, like Shane's dog.
What is this rating?
This rating system hard to follow. The Second from the bottom is Jenny's Manatee Dreamscape, because just a whole load of shit like that no one wants to see. But it's not quite as bad as the bottom tier. The worst it can be is making season 6 an L Word murder mystery the worst decision in the L Word.
I still to this day want to make like a Cluedo based board game that's called The L Word Who Killed Jenny, and it's like you play all the different characters and you get to find out who killed her.
You can use your own rating system of A, B, C,
or just 1 to 5.
1 through 5.
How many stars? How many boobs?
Yeah. And where would you put it in?
So like 5 being the best that it could possibly be, I give it like a 1.5 star.
What?
Oh, whoa. Brutal.
Okay, wait. 2
stars.
1.5
stars says you hated it and you wished you hadn't watched it and you will never watch it ever again.
No. That would be 0 stars. That would be 0 stars.
You're a very strict judge.
Okay, well, I will give it 2 stars. Okay, 2.5. There you go. It's gone up to 2.5.
Up? Okay. What was season 1 for you?
5. Season 1, like a 1.5.
Which season of the original is your 5-star?
None of them are.
Oh.
I haven't liked any of the seasons. Actually, no, I lie. I the ones where Shane and Karma were together were my favorite seasons. But even the seasons in general, I would never give it a 5-star. It's never been like,
it's never been
god,
great television.
No, it's never been the best.
It's never even come up to like the worst episodes of Queer as Folk for me, which is like
well, then what's your star rating then?
Really harsh judges here.
What are you gonna give it, Jess?
Oh, I mean, I actually quite like it. I love Generation Q. We're not talking about the OG. I don't like the OG. I don't want to talk about the OG. Generation Q is much better than the OG in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that. It is much better.
I'd still give it like a solid 4. I enjoyed it. 3.5, 4. I think I like season 1 of Gen Q better, I think. But it's hard to tell because it was a whole different atmosphere in like how I watched season 1 and watching with a group of people and hearing everyone get so excited and like clap in certain parts and laugh together and all these little things pop up because we went into season 1 not knowing anything of what this was going to be like and whether it was going to be a massive train wreck or interesting or what. And they threw in so many little gems and references to the OG that made it like, oh, exciting and you know, just really fun to watch. And then
it was a lot more colorful, I'll give you that.
Yeah. And I still really enjoyed season 2. I love the music and you know, the wardrobes. There were some disappointments just of, you know, expectations not being met. But again, I don't know how much of that is like the writer's room or the direction they want to take the show and how much of it is just like trying to put out fires because of COVID and having to switch things around or switch storylines around. So I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. I still enjoyed it all, even the stuff that I thought.
Yeah.
But there was stuff that made less sense, I feel like, or compared to maybe season 1, or more threads dangling versus what I hoped there would be. So,
well, yeah, I forgot to take in COVID, so that would adjust my rating to like a 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that I'm at a 4 too, and honestly, like I really enjoy the show. I wouldn't be here if I didn't, and I also I think what you said, Jess, is something to take into account too about like how you watch the show, because Kate and Leisha and Marja and Pants were saying like, oh, that this show is meant to be like enjoyed with other people and like talking about it and things like that. And I think that I'm very lucky that I'm in a unique position that I get to talk to lots of people about the episode and like the whole, you know, waiting until midnight for it to drop and then everybody like tweeting about it while it's airing, and then afterwards like doing videos and talking to everybody and comments and blah, blah. Like that to me is a huge enjoyable part of the show that isn't necessarily like in the storyline or whatever of the show. So I am putting that into account, that yes, I know that some people might not like enjoy the show as much as I do, but I'm in a unique situation there. And also I just really enjoyed watching this season. I liked, you know, so like I said, like I really liked the Bette and Gigi, Danny and Gigi, stuff like that. I love Gigi. I love Bette. I love Alice. I like pretty much all of the other characters, and it just was super enjoyable to me. The only thing that doesn't make it like absolutely 5-star for me is the storylines that went nowhere, or just I know I've said this a lot, but the precious minutes. Like I think if they really like sat down and even just listen to a lot of the I don't think that in general they should have to listen to a lot of the stuff that people say, because you know, but I think that the storyline thing, and to just arc out where they ultimately want to go over the course of season 3, because I am hopeful and am pretty confident they'll have one, and where before they even write the season, where they want to be at the end of the season and how they get there. Because having like Shane's gambling or Finley's backstory, whatever, like just having all these little dangling bits, it's using precious minutes wrongly. So I really enjoyed the season. I enjoyed doing the podcast. I enjoyed doing videos. I enjoyed it all. And I really hope that there is a season 3, because no one on this planet will be more disappointed that there isn't than me. Maybe need to be committed if there's not. So
we expect you to put out a crying video if they get cancelled.
And me hearing that the show's cancelled will be...
It's just like 5 minutes of you like...
like clutching Gloria close. Crying.
Yeah. Clutching your pearls.
I mean, honestly, even when I'm being critical, I would be devastated if they canceled the show, because it was... To come back after like 15 years or 17 years, however long it's been, to come back after that time, I mean, it was like a palpable excitement, and to be able to see these like, you know, 3 or 4 core characters again has just, I mean, it's been a lot of fun. And in every episode, even if it's just one line, there's always something that makes me laugh out loud. So I appreciate when you can bring some humor, some levity into like a drama series. You know, those are some of my favorite parts, the OGs and the little inside jokes and stuff like that. I love that. And yeah, it would be very disappointing for it to go away after all this build up. So we need to redeem the poor parts of the original series and have a good, complete story told with these characters second time around.
Yeah, and there's people that are never ever going to be happy or satisfied with what's done with the show. And I mean, there's you go to any sort of fandom and there's people critiquing this and that and everything, and I just try and focus on the people that also really enjoy the show and are able to respectfully say, you know, I have no like complete freedom of speech and like people saying I like this or I like that, but I also think that you need to realize that these people that are writing and on the show are human beings, and that you know, if you're going to critique anything, yes, critique the work, but don't, you know, attack people over it. And it's, at the end of the day, I love the show to death, but it's a show too, so.
It is true. And they're in a tough place, you know, they're the only one. They're the only lesbian show out there.
Yeah.
You know, if you like medical dramas, there's a half a dozen you can choose from. Pick which characters you like. If you like legal dramas, there's a half a dozen you can choose from. You know, every other sort of show out there.
Well, I think that's why they brought them back, because they thought by now there would be like a bunch of lesbian shows, and there wasn't.
Yeah, so they can't do all storylines. They can't be all things to all people. You know, they're just one show. So it'd be great if we had 4 or 5 to
we should
choose from, different age groups, different locations, you know.
For more lesbian shows.
I mean, there are some lesbian shows, but with like, you know, one core character. They're kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, and I do always think, like, you know, all the nameless, faceless people who are so quick to criticize that, yeah, there's a lot of things out there that if you think that you can do better, then maybe this is someone's origin story of how they write the next one or anything like that. So
10 years from now we see some other shows pop up and they're like, well, the L Word was so crap that forced me to write a whole new show.
I like Gen Q a lot.
Oh no, I meant the original.
Oh wow. Well, I'm just not even concerned with the original anymore.
Goes without saying, but I have absolutely loved this season. I have loved doing this podcast. I love you guys and all of our listeners that have been with us, especially through our long episodes. Miss G has loved this season. It's been so great doing this, and even in our crazy time zones. So I've loved it, and again, I will be absolutely devastated if the show is not renewed.
Don't bring it into the world. Don't even think it.
Yeah. No, it will. I'm confident it will be. I think the timeline's just weird right now, but I'm confident it will be. So, and
bringing it into life.
Thank you all
the
for
announcement will be soon.
Tuning in, and I don't know. I'd personally love to know if there's anything else that listeners would want to hear us talk about, whether it's related to the L Word or something completely different. Let us know.
Yeah, because there's going to be a long hiatus.
We should do one of those call-in episodes where the people can call in and tell like, dear diary, like, I have a girlfriend and she's doing this. What should I do? Like,
I don't think we're popular enough for that.
Worst person to give advice on anything.
Advice. We could give advice.
Dear Abby. No.
Dear Abby.
I mean, we could give advice that wouldn't be worthwhile to anyone. But...
Call in and ask Miss G her opinion.
She'll just be like, stay indoors, don't go outside, dogs are evil.
So it's been an absolute blast doing this, and yeah, I am always up for doing something else, so write in with your suggestions. And...
Thanks to Ash for spending countless hours editing all of these together.
Yes, thank you, Ash.
Chris and I are way too lazy to ever.
Oh, I know. That's the only reason I agreed to do it. Ash was like, I'll do all the work. I'm like, fine.
Okay then. Yes.
You're the talent. I'm the showrunner. You just show up and look beautiful. Well, yeah, it's been great, and as always, you guys can find us on Instagram, Apple. If you've enjoyed this season, please give us a little review on Apple Podcasts. We will be back at some stage when season 3 comes, and who knows, maybe there'll be some little special episodes coming up, so make sure that you've got subscription turned on so that we can surprise you with maybe some little specials. And as always, thank you so much for listening, especially to those people who have listened to every single episode. We really appreciate it, and we'll hopefully see you in the not too distant future. So as always, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
So sad. Bye. End broadcast.